Hey, what's up, family and friends? We are not live yet, so let's stop it. We're going live now. Hey, what's up, family and friends? This is your girl, Coach T, and thank you so much for for watching us and joining us for another episode of Know Your Worth, where uh, where we are all about empowerment and also particularly women empowering women. And what better way for it to be empowering each other, but being having a safe space to be transparent and share our stories for the sake of empowering ourselves and empowering each other. Here, we like to be intentional in doing that and not let this just be words that we say, but we are acting this out as well. So, um, I want to thank you so much again for your time here. And I particularly want to thank Miss Kelly right now for joining me. As we were just talking, I'm so excited for her because to like be in a distance and see her journey and see like some obstacles that she may or may not share today, and see her go through those and see her come out on the other side. Oh my God, it's so inspiring, and I consider it a blessing to have her here to share her story right now. So, with that being said, Kelly will be a better person to introduce herself than I would. So, here we go. Hi, Kelly.
Hi. Oh my gosh, that was such a great intro. Um, I never thought that I would be inspiring and being in this position. But, life kind of throws you curveballs.
Mhm.
I mean, a little bit about me. I'm a mom, I'm an employee, I'm an entrepreneur. My family we're house fire survivors, we're trauma survivors, and we're kind of like what you said, we're coming out on the other side and have learned so many lessons along the way. Um, I think my goal now is to be able to help women navigate really, really terrible tragedies. And so I think this is an incredible platform to be able to share what we've learned and um, help you in your empowerment journey.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, from the perspective of that was the day of like the fire trauma that you're referring to. Like, I met you that day,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, it was a huge milestone in your life. And and I just kind of think that sometimes when we kind of it's tough when we go through those transitions from like okay, and then we just kind of go through those turmoils in life. It is
Mm-hmm.
even more challenging when you like up on a peak at the high and then drastically down at like some one of like the worst case scenarios that can happen to you. And so um I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one thinking like, oh my God, what happens from this? And now if people are listening to this podcast are probably thinking like, oh my God, what are they talking about? I
Mm-hmm.
want to know more. So can you share, please?
Absolutely. So I started a business a couple years ago, and I had been slowly doing it outside of my work hours. I work full time in marketing, and I joined an entrepreneurship boot camp. And that was, I believe, 12 to 16 weeks worth of time, resources, meetings. I mean, it was a phenomenal opportunity. It was through a bunch of different organizations here in Wisconsin. And the culmination of this boot camp was a pitch night where we literally put together a 3-minute pitch, essentially selling our product and our business to potential investors and community members. And so to be so excited to like complete this program, like I just remember meeting Josh and Amy throughout the course of this, and like we texted each other and we're like, we're almost fucking done. Like, I can't wait to be done. And so, like, literally that night, I do my pitch, and I, like, it was just riding a high. And I got a notification on my phone that my Ring camera system in my house went out. And sometimes, you know, when the power fluctuates or Wi-Fi goes out or something like that, I got it at 6:07 and I delivered my pitch at about 6:12. So I didn't check on it because I was gearing up for like this pitch. And after that, all the other businesses, you know, there was 5 or 6 of us, I believe. Everybody else, you know, was doing their pitch. And then afterwards we had meet and greet, which is where I met you. And I'll never forget. And I still to this day, I don't know how I knew. I was so excited to go home, but that drive normally takes me 15 minutes. It felt like it took an hour. And I don't know why. When I parked my car and my son and I walked up to our front door, I smelled smoke, and I thought it was really bizarre because it was like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, what neighbor is grilling? Like, that's literally what it smelled like, was smoke. And as we started getting closer, I heard beeping, and my brain couldn't comprehend what the beeping was, what the smoke was. And I literally had like a crate of my supplies and jerky stuff that I was bringing in my front door. And I opened my front door, and I couldn't even walk in my front door because I got like this big black waft of smoke. And so like my foot, there was probably about like this much of my foot that entered the threshold of my home. And as I pulled my foot away, you literally could see a black outline of the soot, and my shoe pulled away like my footprint. And so my son was probably 6 to 10 steps behind me, and I started screaming, and I called 911. Still to this day, I have not listened to that 911 call. I know it was posted online. I started screaming for my dogs. I mean, we love our animals. They're our world. And so that poor 911 dispatcher, she was like, where do you live? You need to, you know, go stand in the road. And so my son and I stood in the road, and he used his phone to call my mom, who's a huge support system of our family. She was actually driving home to Door County following our pitch event. And then he went to go get some neighbors while I'm on the phone with the dispatcher. And I just remember, and I never ever thought in my life that I would desire to hear sirens. I wanted that sound so bad because it meant help. And so police ultimately showed up first, and police officer, I don't know what his name is. I never will. Forever grateful for him. He ended up running into the house to try and save our dogs. I kept screaming like, my dogs are in the house, my dogs are in the house. And he actually he went in my house. No safety gear, nothing. And I don't know if he knew that I was the homeowner, because there was, by this time, a lot of neighbors were outside. And so I don't know if he made the connection. But when he came outside, he radioed, and that's when I heard that our dogs were dead. And so I don't think he meant for me to hear that. You know, he would have delivered that message, you know, in a more compassionate way, potentially. but I just remember collapsing. Like it was just, couldn't even fathom the things that were happening. So then fire trucks showed up. Ultimately, my mom showed up. Um, you know, we had smoke and soot damage essentially throughout our entire home. So the things that we have lived with for over a decade, we no longer could use. Our kitchen was completely destroyed. The heat, the smoke, the soot, everything was completely just a total loss. Um, the fire department, the De Pere Fire Department, was absolutely phenomenal. Like, now looking back, they were the most compassionate men that I have ever encountered. They helped me, they helped my son, they helped my neighbors, my family. I mean, they were just absolutely incredible. So, you know, there's so many lessons from that evening, just that evening. Like, I could talk for 40 hours about our experience after that evening. But I think in those moments when you have people who literally go into your house to help you without the safety equipment, like they're just incredible humans. So that was, you talk about like riding a high and then just literally rock bottom. I remember that night we ended up, our cat survived. So we had our two dogs pass away. My son's bunny passed away, and our cat actually survived. She hid under the stairs in the basement. But all of her supplies were damaged. And so by the time we got done with everything, we were trying to find a store that was open to where I could get a litter box for her and food. And like nothing was open. I think we ended up going to Festival or something. And then we stayed with my mom that night. We didn't have any clothes except the clothes on our backs. Thankfully, my mom, you know, she gave clothes to me and Ethan, and like Ethan, he was so little at that point, like he just drowned in her sweatpants. But it's like, at least it's clothes. So that night really was the catalyst for a whole lot of change and growth and evolution and lessons in our life.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. Like the fact that like you just it just kind of shows like how like these things that were transpiring behind the scene of you know, like the ring camera going out, and then you and that you're right, because then there was so much that, you know, like from my hearing is that that's probably when the fire had started. Is that what I'm hearing? That it started by now, and then everything else, because it wasn't like, oh, if you do this, then you go home. There
Right.
was so much more that transpired during that time. Um, wow. And here you are. I wouldn't say like you didn't give up. I think that one for me is like, wow, because like that is such an awesome thing. Because like, can you share a little bit what you do? Because I think they're really good. And I so like, can you share like your a little bit of like what your business and
Oh, sure. So day job, I work in marketing. I love it. It's my passion. My other passion is food. I make craft beef jerky. My slogan is I like my meat moist because who likes dry meat? Um, Doing different meat flavors. I do beef, chicken, and then my favorite is actually mushroom jerky. So, like to be a little bit unique, a little bit different, kind of disrupting our perception of what jerky is and can be. Um, is that what you wanted me to say?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and it was really good because like that was my first time, because I'm not really a huge jerky fan, but yours was because it is moist and it
Mhm.
was tender and it was really good because we had some samples there. I think I had enough for maybe not like a sample. I think I actually had a full course because like I was just eating them. But yeah, and I just think that was important because too, because like did you have like equipment? Like, did what was that like for you as far as your business perspective? Like this, you lost your home, and how did this impact you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur?
Um, so I think equipment wise, everything was deemed a total loss. I had everything pretty much in my spare bedroom, because at that point I didn't have a commercial kitchen space. So I was making things in a room in my house that was cordoned off from my animals.
Mhm.
Um, and so all of that was a total loss. I think the things that you can't necessarily quantify was the momentum that I lost, because here I'm going through this blueprint, I'm developing my voice, I'm developing my business message, and all of these incredible opportunities are happening, and it just completely all came to a screeching halt. Anybody in like marketing or having a small business like yourself, like the momentum within your social media is so valuable. And to completely lose all of that was just another form of devastation.
Mhm.
It even, like, I had to go to therapy, I mean, for multiple reasons, obviously, but within my business, because it happened the night of the pitch, I really had to sit with, is this business actually the right fit for me? Like, was this a message from the universe? Like, Kel, you shouldn't be making meat. You should be doing something else. Because I associated the fire so much with like blaming my business. Because if I wasn't at that pitch, I would have been home. I would have been able to get my dogs out. I would have been able to maybe save our home and our items and our memories. And um, I think that's one thing, people are always like, well, at least you weren't home. I don't think people understand how hurtful some of those statements are, because it's like, if I was home, I wouldn't have the devastation of losing our fur fam. Like,
Mhm.
it's just, and I know people mean well, but something I've learned this past year is like, our words do have an impact regardless of your intention.
Yes. Yes. Huge. Yes. That I feel like there's been a lot of conversations for some lately that I've been having around it. Yes. Thanks for saying that. And then that is kind of like one of the, I think that's like an, a go-to thing that people say because we feel like we need to have something encouraging to say
Right.
because we get so uncomfortable with allowing people like this, like let them sit. It's actually okay and to sit in it because we got to go through things, not around things like this. So that's awesome. So you said that like, so what do you feel like as you as a person, as Kelly, beyond being, because like, Kelly is more than an entrepreneur, a mom and everything else, like we all as women. What has this changed you as a person? Or like, like what strengths and things have you found within yourself coming out of this challenge?
Well, I have definitely found my voice. If you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, um, I've always been much better with like one-on-one conversations. Like, I love learning from people, but I'm very, very, very used to be very bad at drawing boundaries.
Mhm.
I was a chronic people pleaser. I hardly would say no. I would stretch myself beyond what I could handle for the sake of not wanting people to leave me, not wanting to disappoint somebody. So this entire process, I mean, I won't go into like all of the logistics, but in house fire scenarios, you're dealing with insurance, you're dealing with contractors, you're dealing with suppliers, you're dealing with, agencies that are trying to help you. And so I really had to find my voice, because it's me. Like, it's me and my son. I don't have anybody to speak for me or help me. So it was like, Kelly, you either do this or you're going to get railroaded, and you're not going to be able to get home as fast and as safely and effectively as possible. So it was like I think a slow build, because initially I really tried to be nice. I tried to be kind to the people that were supposed to be helping me. And I didn't get any answers. I didn't get any help. Things were just being pushed back. And our original date that we were supposed to be home was December. We didn't end up moving home until April. So things were just being pushed back. Nobody was doing what they were supposed to be doing despite being paid. So I really, and I'll totally say this, I had to put my bitch hat on and fight for myself and fight for my family. And it really taught me that, like, I should have been doing that my entire life, because if I didn't push as hard as I did, I would still be living in a hotel. Like that's the point of, like, I was fighting tooth and nail for us to just get home. Mm-hmm. And so translating that into who Kelly is, you know, I'm still working on boundaries. I think it's something that as women, especially as moms, you know, we consistently have to navigate, but I am much more vocal about what I need. I'm kind of at a point where, like, you either love me or you hate me, and I'm okay with either way. And so to arrive in this place personally is coming out of this scenario. Obviously, I never would have wished this scenario upon myself, my family. But as we're navigating what our new normal looks like, these are the things where I'm starting to find gratitude, because it's creating and setting the stone for, or setting the path for, you know, what's next for us, and how can we hopefully help other people not have to go through the hell that we went through.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's awesome. Okay, so now another question that I imagine that I know the answer to this now because I follow you. But where are you as far as with your business and things? Because I know that you said that you questioned, was this what you're supposed to be doing? And then you also have another passion too. So in my brain is like, well, she could have easily just said, all right, put that to the side because this also is my passion. And it would have made it an easy gate, an easy out, So where are you?
Yeah, so I think, you know, after doing some deep soul searching, and a lot of support from family and friends, is like, I really wanted to continue making jerky. It's something that I love to do. It's a product I believe in. I love being a female in a very male dominated industry and kind of just disrupting that perspective within itself. It's interesting because within marketing, you know, I try and stay abreast of, like, national holidays, you know, like, here's National Ice Cream Day, here's, you know, National whatever this day. And so I was like, I wonder if there's any jerky holidays coming up. And this was maybe like March or April. And I found out that National Jerky Day was June 12th. And I was like, okay, so, like, we're moving home. I actually got a really good opportunity to use a commercial kitchen, which I can talk about in a second. I was like, you know what? I think a relaunch on National Jerky Day would just be, like, kind of the goal that I want to work for. Like, it's a couple months away. I can figure this out and just do, like, a small, okay, like, yes, we're here. Yes, we're beginning again. Please help us. So we ended up relaunching. And we ultimately did get some press last year after the fire. I had a couple reporters reached out. We talked about our house fire story. And through that, the gentleman that owns Comedy City in De Pere actually expanded his space and now owns also After. It's a social club bar that's kind of like on the backside of Comedy City. And within that whole space, there's a commercial kitchen that is between the two businesses. and he and his brother didn't really need the space. And so, being entrepreneurs themselves, they wanted to essentially give an opportunity to us and to me. And hey, here's a commercial space, like, give it a go. And so that's where we were able to do some taste testing and ultimately relaunch Fridge Jerky. And so that was now a couple weeks ago now. We ultimately did our first farmers market a few days after that. And I was like, my introvert self was so freaking terrified for being at a farmer's market where like strangers were going to come up and talk to me. So this is where I rallied like two of my best girlfriends who are both like extroverts, super outgoing. And I was like, you guys, I need you by me, because I literally, when I pulled in and they weren't there yet, I was like, I can just go home. You know what? I'm just going to go home. I'm not even going to do this. It's cold. Like, nope, I'm not doing it. But I was like, okay, you're never going to get where you want to get if you're going to sit here and just be in your comfy zone, Kelly. Like, so was there, got some incredible feedback, actually made some really good connections, and came out of my shell a little bit. And so we're in the process of figuring out, essentially we have two ways that we could operate. Is I could work on obtaining my own license and producing myself, or I could find somebody who within my product and recipe standards can produce for me, and I would manage more of like the administrative, marketing, sales side. Both of those definitely are going to need funding. So just trying to figure out what's going to work best for me, what's going to work best for my family. I currently love my full-time job, so I don't want to jeopardize that in any way. But I also want like meat to get out there. So that's kind of where we're at.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's also good, because like it takes a lot. You didn't just get up and say, like it took what drove you? Like what was your why in the moment that made you say, you know what, I'm not gonna give up on this? I imagine it was and the why that made you get out that car that day, because it is easy to just say, we look for endless excuses, even during sometimes it's like during like, okay, well, all right, I can leave now, like people, especially, or I'll wait in the car until they get here.
So it was a little bit of inner dialogue. I'm very, sometimes dark humor, really stupid humor sometimes. So I was literally sitting in my car and I'm like, Kelly, you have ran for hours, because I finished my first half marathon during COVID. So like, hours. I ran for hours. After that, I sat for hours getting a tattoo. I'm like, you sat getting needles poked into your skin for hours. You can sit here and talk to people and not have the physical pain that you experienced in both of those scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
I was like you, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like that inner, I don't know how the fuck it happened, but it just happened.
You just did, yeah, yeah. And then I like that if it's not now, because like we always wait for what now is not the time. Where is it the time? Like you make the time. Now is the time. Whatever it is that you're trying to do right now, now is the time.
Mm-hmm.
I like that as a good
Mm-hmm.
takeaway. Like your time is now. And that's for me too, because like I'm speaking to myself too, because I'm full of like, put that on the list. Like that doesn't need to, that needs to apply now. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Wow. And I am so sorry to hear about, it's kind of about your dogs. I'm so sorry to hear about that. That
Yeah.
like, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Um, I it's really ironic because I had a dog ever since I was 17. He passed away in like the midst of COVID. And thank goodness I could be there to, put him to rest. There's no way I would have let him go without being in my arms. I quickly realized after that how much I rely and look forward to having the companionship of a dog. And so I ended up getting a Newfoundland puppy. I think it was like 4 months after my dog had passed away. And so when she ended up passing away in the fire, she had just turned 2. So like I had raised her. She was my girl. That dog went with me everywhere. It's really weird to talk about, but like I felt as though I was finally in a place in my life where I could be truly vulnerable and just like fully love her. And like she was the craziest, coolest dog. And randomly, we ended up being a foster family with the Humane Society. And the January before the fire, we fostered an elderly pit bull. He was 12, he was blind, he was deaf. He was just this big tank of a pit bull. And like nobody wanted him. He was in the shelter for months. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're coming home." We actually ended up picking him up Christmas Eve. So he spent the holidays with us.
Yeah.
And then we ultimately ended up adopting him, of course, because I'm a big freaking sucker. So for him to pass away in such a devastating way, I felt so freaking guilty because it's like if he would have gone with somebody else, maybe he'd still be alive, So it's just thankfully, and I don't think I shared this before, they actually ended up passing away of carbon monoxide poisoning.
Okay.
So they were in my kitchen, living, dining room, like open thing. And we actually could see when they pulled their bodies, there was literally a soot outline of their bodies. So they ended up falling asleep from the carbon monoxide and then passing away. So it was as peaceful as it could have been, which we definitely found solace in because I did not want them to suffer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's natural because like if it has to happen, like you said, and then they're not suffering. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that was you was able to find some peace in that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So now we have, I think he's sleeping somewhere. We have a Newfoundland who's turning 1 tomorrow. We love
Oh,
our big fluffy dogs. So,
a July
yeah.
birthday, yay!
Mm-hmm. I don't even know what sign he is. I should know.
Cancer. I'm a July birthday.
When's your birthday?
July 21st.
Oh, coming up.
Mm-hmm. And it's Cancer. Yeah. What is your dog's name?
Hubie.
Hubie's a Cancer.
I'll have to read about that.
Yeah.
See if it matches.
Yeah, I actually just discovered recently when talking to a friend that there's a difference between June cancers and July cancers. Well, I'm a July Cancer, but yeah. So it's like okay. Well, and I told another
Interesting.
friend, I was like, well, it must be true because Google said so, right? So
Everything's true on the internet.
yeah, right. Um, so what are some words? Because like you've been through a lot, and I like to ask people, what are some words of encouragement or that you would give a woman that is listening to this who's probably just because like maybe not the same thing, but we all go through these like emotional, like our pain and our pain is
Mhm.
our pain and our trauma is our trauma. So like you you are definitely in the process of enduring this trauma, and I'm pretty sure that there life doesn't give us one thing at a time to handle. So in that
Mhm.
emotional, so what have and hear you on here now. I just want to say, Kelly, that I'm proud of you because when you were saying that you're using your voice and you didn't always do that. And then when I put this post up and then you were one of the ones that were like, like, yeah, I want to utilize my voice for the sake of other women. So that is just powerful within itself that you are just like making that choice. Like, I'm no longer going to sit silence. I'm going to take up space and I'm going to be
Mhm.
heard and in a way that I've never done before. And I'm not going to allow myself to sit comfortable and stagnant. I'm just going to live and thrive. So good job for you doing that. I appreciate that. So,
Well,
um,
I love you for saying that because,
thank you.
it's like stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit. But I also think like if I had had somebody to listen to or learn from in this regard, because I feel like, house fires, all the devastation of that is like very nuanced. Hopefully not a lot of people go through that experience.
Mhm.
But, when you go through grief, when you have traumatic scenarios happen, a lot of, because obviously I've experienced trauma beyond the house fire. Um, but I don't think I would have been as okay with this house fire if I hadn't really worked on myself the way that I had prior to that for probably a few years before the fire.
Mhm.
Um, and so I know that I didn't manage it well. I mean, it was like I was a zombie sometimes. I would go out with my friends sometimes, so I wouldn't remember what was going on because it was just so much. And so I really, I think words of encouragement is like sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And it's not, I'm tired of people saying, like, this is what you should do with grief. This is what you should do in order to get through your day. Like, for me, it might be like cooking a meal is what fuels my soul. For you, it might be watching a show on Netflix or, sitting out in the rain or like do what feels good for you in that moment and give yourself permission to like do it and
Mhm.
don't like unapologetically do it. And if people are concerned about you that love you, then, maybe you can listen to them because you respect their opinion. But like, for me, so many people were telling me, like, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to do. And I'm like, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but like, I literally don't have scissors. I don't have an extra pair of shoes. Like, I don't even have another freaking bra. And you're telling me that I'm supposed to go for a freaking walk so I feel better. Like, let me just be how I need to be.
Mhm.
So, and uh, that's not the fluffy stuff. That's like the real shit. Like, when you're going through it, you have to get through it however you need to. Now,
Absolutely.
mind you, like, healthy choices are important and mindfulness and exercise and, all of the things we know we should be doing. But sometimes you really just need your basic needs met. And I think it's okay to just have your basic needs met.
Mhm.
Like, sometimes that's a big win.
Mhm.
So I think, in those moments, it was like, okay, I ate my meal for the day. Like, this is a win. Um, but also, don't allow yourself to stay there. Like, you have opportunities to build upon the strengths that you have. The one thing that I will always say is like two things. I drew upon what I had within myself that I didn't even know that I had. And that's something that as women, we have it. Like, we are running our lives, we are running our households, we are running businesses, we are running, children's lives. Like, you have it within you to get through anything that you possibly could have thrown at you. So pull on that. And when sometimes you need more, that's when you pull on those connections. Because the one thing that I had despite all of this was the connections of the people that loved me.
Mhm. Wow. That's awesome. I love the fact, like we sometimes we don't even recognize our only, like when you were saying earlier, I heard you say numerous of times, like, I don't know how I did it. And like pulling on that
Mm-hmm.
inner strength because like sometimes we don't recognize we have it until we're going through some things that's forcing us to use it. I appreciate you saying that. And then also talking about the real rawness of not that fluffy. I hate fluffy. And like the real rawness of healing and what that looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
even when we are reaching, like our, those that love us and they give us the advice and it's coming from, like you said, it comes from a very good intentional place. But my grandmother used to always say to me, when people tell you something and you chew the meat and spit out the bones, everything may not apply, and be okay with that, because I don't think that our culture and society has given, especially us as women, the okay to be okay with our emotions and being who we are, and that may look different and be different, and
Mhm.
just be okay, be okay with that. And I imagine, like, with you work, like you said, you work in a very male dominant field, and like, and like, probably didn't even recognize like how much you have been doing that when you first started doing that, and then
Mhm.
so yeah, thank you so much. So many gems that you shared. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What's
Yeah.
next for you? So you plan on, like, you're at your job and you're doing marketing, which is awesome, but I did not know that. And we may need to have another conversation outside of the camera.
You
And
betcha.
and but what's next for Kelly? When you like you are blooming. What's next for you?
So personally, I'm really like, I want to get my physical health back. We have lived in a duplex, we've lived in a hotel. Um, Stress has been through the roof, and I just really want to feel good about myself again.
Mhm.
So that's personal journey. Professional journey, love my job, work in marketing. Entrepreneurship journey, um, working on jerky, figuring out what that looks like. I love to write. I don't think a lot of people know that I really enjoy um, writing, and so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like with all of the lessons that I've learned over this
Mhm.
past year. Um, I also am slowly configuring what a nonprofit advocacy sort of deal would look like,
Mhm.
because when I was going through what I went through, I was on the phone with so many different people, and probably half the time I didn't know what was going on.
Mhm.
Like, I didn't understand the jargon. These people deal with this stuff all day, and I'm over here like, so does that mean that I can get like a door added, or like, oh, okay. So it was, sometimes it was so confusing, and like my family worked in construction, so like I really understood like the construction side, which, side note, was really really fun because um I was a little overlooked in that regard. And
Mhm.
so my contractors initially were like just trying to railroad it all. And I was like, that's not really how you're supposed to do that. And they're like, what? So it's just, it goes into like, okay, I'm a relatively young single homeowner, I'm a woman. All of the contractors that came into my house were men, and sometimes they didn't even like introduce themselves to me or like do anything, and I'm like, excuse me, like, you are entering my home, like there has to be a level of respect here. And so that was super fun. So I get off on tangents. So I think trying to configure like how I can help, ultimately I would love to prevent house fires, but just for the nature of life, like they're not as preventable as we think they are.
Mhm.
Um, Helping people navigate the trauma after the fact, and hopefully, giving them, I think the one thing that I really wanted was like validation. I just wanted to feel validated that how I felt was okay.
Mhm.
People are like, move on. It's been a year. You're in your house. Like, everything's fucking fine. And I'm over here like, okay, but I just had to give a birthday present to somebody, and I don't have my wrapping paper repertoire that I had in my basement that was acquired over 20 years. like it's all of these things that still come up. And so I think in the moment as humans, like we so have to validate each other's experience, even if it's not our own. Like, even if you're uncomfortable with me talking about like what I've experienced, I just want you to hear me. Like, I don't need you to do anything other than hear me. So that's kind of like trying to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah, man, wow, that's awesome. And so, like, and yeah, because everybody wants to fix, but really, that validation is free. It's just you just give it time. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
like how I hear that so much. Like, I didn't in those moments, like, especially the validation, especially as for women, because I don't, like, I just needed someone to make me feel like I was not, it was okay for me to feel the way I feel in a moment and not tell me I'm being dramatic or I should be over it or all those other things. Just allow me to be me,
Yes.
So yeah. I love your transparency, Miss Kelly. Thank you so
Well,
much.
you are so welcome. Ask me anything at this point. A
Yeah,
year
yeah,
ago, I would have said, things are fine. I'm good. Thanks
yeah,
for asking. How are you?
yeah. It's like I went to the store not long ago, and just going through it, and this guy is like, "Hi." I mean, you just pass each other. I think it was Pick and Save, like, "Hi," and he's like, "Hi." He's like, "Hey, how are you?" And then I was like, "Good," but he stopped intentionally, and it threw me off because I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm good." Like, oh, it wasn't. Hey, how are you? Like that. It was like, it like. I mean, I was just like, that's pretty cool. I want to start doing that more, but I am usually, like you just like he was really intentional. Like, no, I really want to know, stranger. Like, if how are you today? And and it wasn't
Wow.
any in a weird way. He asked a question, so he stopped to see, like, and he's like, okay, that's something. He's like, well, that's great. Continue to have a great day and keep on walking. It's like, oh, that's what we need. That's exactly
That's
what
so
we need.
profound. Like that,
Yeah.
even just like that one split second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ugh, yeah.
Yeah, it made a difference. It made a difference, and obviously because I'm still talking about it, and I'm used to saying the other day, but this was been like over a week ago. So
Hmm.
yes, it definitely made a difference. Well,
Wow.
thank you so much for your time, and I am looking forward to continue to follow you. And like I said, it's been an inspiration, and then to be able to, it's one thing to be able to see, but to someone to have the transparency of like how, like how things really have been, and to get to that place. That's what we really need. We don't need people telling us like how, and sometimes like what to do. Like you should do this, like you said, like, okay, well, go take a walk and things like that. Or it's like the fact that the wrapping paper, those things do matter. These are the
Mm-hmm.
things that we don't get to see that often, to make us be okay within our own, have our permission to have those moments ourselves. That what I'm just tired. And sometimes all I have in me is to go sit on my couch and watch and binge watch a movie, a
Mm-hmm.
TV show. I'm sorry, maybe sometimes it is movies. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
It
maybe,
so is.
and not feel guilty about it, and not
Mm-hmm.
make me feel like I need to do much more than what I'm doing right now at this moment.
And I think that's where, the just the expectations of what we should be doing is something that I struggle with so much because, none of us walk the same path. We have such different lives, and we know what works for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if you need help figuring out what works for you, that's one thing. But I'm not going to sit here and say, like, this is what you need to do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's something that I'm trying to be mindful of because, not everybody that has experienced a house fire or, home tragedy has had the same experience that we've had. There's been some contractors who have been phenomenal, insurance companies who've been phenomenal. And I may or may not be a little jealous, but I'm happy for them.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Miss Kelly. And then there you have it. And again, I'm not sure if we're going live now, but I will check. And then those who are watching this now live or watching it later, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comment, and then we will. If it's pertaining to Miss Kelly, then I will make sure that she is able to see that, and then and let's just continue to like I said, be intentional and just being the allowing people to just be them, whether it's uncomfortable or not, because like the unfortunate and also unfortunate is that the rawest is like where the most empowerment comes from, like so let's be comfortable with having that, sharing that space and having that space for each other, because we don't need to tell another woman how the struggles it is being a woman out here in this world. So let's just be there for each other and fix each other's crowns. um yeah, Miss Kelly, if you don't have anything else, we will wrap this session up, and I'm excited for people to hear your voice and
I'm
for
so thankful. Thank you for having me.
yeah.
You created such a safe space.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. All right. So 1 second.